Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. The first thing I want you to do is hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Subscribers, hit the notification bell, be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. I'm here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. On this episode of The Process, we do have a couple of things to hit on. Talk about a big upcoming weekend for the Crimson Tide on the recruiting trail as they will get some official visitors on campus. Also talk about a couple of Alabama commits reaction to the Crimson Tide losing to the Tennessee Vols on Saturday, and also provide a couple of other updates about some Crimson Tide targets in multiple recruiting classes. So let's dive right into it here. Let's start with the 2024 guy I had an opportunity to catch up with, and I'm talking about Nigel Smith, a four-star defensive lineman out of Melissa High School in Texas. Recently visited the Crimson Tide when Alabama took on the Texas A&M Aggies. Had an opportunity to get back to Tuscaloosa after taking an unofficial visit to Alabama in June after receiving an offer from Alabama in May. I think Smith is going to be one of the top defensive linemen in the 2024 recruiting class out of Texas. So you know the Texas A&M Aggies and some of the top schools in the nation. Georgia recently offered to him. He's going to be a national recruit, going to be one of the top defensive linemen in the 2024 recruiting class. But an opportunity to catch up with him, and he talked about his recent trip to Tuscaloosa. Said he really enjoyed it, really enjoyed catching up with Alabama's coaches. He is in constant contact with Alabama every week, specifically with the Crimson Tide's wide receiver coach, Harmon Wiggins. So Smith is one of the top 2024 recruits who the Crimson Tide are in contact with at the moment. In terms of Alabama's defensive scheme, after watching it in person against Texas A&M, the Tide's defense did have a great performance up front against the Aggies with all of those quarterback hurries, and that was something that really stood out to Smith. Said he really feels he could fit into Alabama's defensive scheme, and he said he feels Alabama is one of his top schools. So Smith is a early 2024 guy to know at the moment, 6'5", 260 pounds. Has experience playing all across Melissa High School's defensive front, playing as an edge guy, as an edge rusher in their particular scheme, also playing as an interior guy, most likely be an interior defensive lineman at the next level. I think he is a guy the Crimson Tide would really like to add to the 2024 class. Long way to go, but we do know the Crimson Tide is at least in the mix right now for the Texas product. Let's switch our attention to the 2023 guys now, starting with Hunter Osborne, who we had an opportunity to watch in action again on Friday night. It wasn't his best game in terms of him having an impact, but I like what I saw from him in terms of his size. He really seems to be filling out his frame a lot more. I remember watching him in the spring. He said he was around 265 pounds. Watching him on Friday, he might have easily gained about 10 more pounds. He looks to be around that 270 to 80 range at the moment, so he's filling out that size, and I think he is going to fit right into Alabama's defensive scheme as an interior guy. I know early on, looking at his frame, many thought that he possibly could be an outside linebacker edge guy early on, but as he continues to get bigger, continues to put on some weight, he's filling into that frame to be an interior guy, defensive end for the Crimson Tide at the next level. But he still seems to be really good in space, has a basketball background, but I think when I had an opportunity to interview him, we got some pretty good things out of the four-star defensive lineman. Of course, he's happy to be locked in with the Crimson Tide. You guys can check out our interview with him on our YouTube page, but he also has his eyes on a couple of guys to possibly join him in Tuscaloosa in the future. One guy is a guy a lot of Alabama commits are going after, and that is five-star defensive end Keon Keeley out of Tampa, Florida. He's also looking at Kelby Collins, a guy who he has talked about in the past when he verbally committed to Alabama. Hunter Osborne said he was going to try his best to get Collins on board. Unfortunately, Collins did commit to the Florida Gators a little bit later after that announcement from Hunter Osborne. And speaking of Collins, we do have an update on him. He took an unofficial visit to Alabama when the Crimson Tide took on the Texas A&M Aggies. Going back to Osborne's interview, he said that Collins got the Tuscaloosa on that day, so he must be looking at Alabama for something, and that is because Alabama is still pushing for him very hard. He told me that actually earlier today. Alabama is still in the mix. They are the school pushing for him really hard at the moment outside of the Florida Gators trying to hold on to his verbal commitment. Of course, Collins grew up an Alabama fan. His family, his dad is an Alabama fan. Remember, he committing to the Florida Gators, and his dad said he was not going to take down any of his Alabama football gear. So they are trying their best to stay in contact with him and his family. I know going back to an earlier point in his recruitment, he talked about how he had a great relationship with Alabama, and Alabama's coaching staff had a great relationship with his family as well. So the Crimson Tide are not giving up on trying to keep a great defensive lineman inside the state. That is an area that they definitely want to improve on their team, and you do not want to let an elite guy like Collins leave the state. So the Crimson Tide are still trying to recruit him. Hopefully they get him on campus for an official visit before National Signing Day. I think that is the next step, but the Tide are definitely still pushing hard for the 4-star defensive lineman and Kelby Collins out of Gardendale High School in Gardendale, Alabama. As you guys all know, Alabama football did fall to the Tennessee Vols on Saturday. I did have an opportunity to catch up with some Alabama commits after that game just to get their thoughts on the matchup. So I thought I would share those thoughts with you guys on today's episode. Just a couple of quotes from those guys. One of those guys said, "Tough loss, but a great game nonetheless. Offense put up a huge fight all game." A lot of Alabama commits talked about what a lot of Alabama fans have been discussing, I feel, ever since that game ended, the bad officiating. So another quote focus on that. It was some bad calls. I am mad, and I cannot wait for next season because we are going to beat them bad, and I mean bad. Another quote, "It was disappointing to see. Always want to see them win, but I'm rolling with the Tide, win or lose." Another more, I guess, critical quote from an Alabama commit came from one of the Crimson Tide's 2023 pledges, who said it was very bad on all sides of the field, offense, defense, and special teams. "I expect more from our defense. Letting up 52 points is horrible. In my opinion, the game shouldn't have come down to a record 50-yard field goal. He shouldn't take the blame for the loss. The offensive and defensive coordinators need to squish things up next week because their play calling wasn't the best last game." So they pretty much said the same thing a lot of Alabama fans have been saying ever since that game ended and the Vols tore down both goalposts in Neyland Stadium. So Alabama commits are definitely circling that matchup, looking forward to possibly playing Tennessee next week and winning, not next week, next year, and winning and defeating the Vols. But I know current Alabama football players are focused on the SEC championship game and a possible rematch. So we know they have that definitely in the back of their mind as they focus on the rest of their schedule, specifically Mississippi State on this weekend. And before we preview this weekend, I do want to give a shout out to some Alabama commits who was recently named to the Alabama Mississippi AllStar rosters. The Crimson Tide will be represented on both teams. On the Mississippi roster, Brayson Hubbard, the Crimson Tide's 2023 3-star athlete, will play for his home state. He will be a quarterback. That is the position he is listed at on the roster, which is a bit surprising in a way. I kind of wanted to see him as a defensive back because that is the position he's projected to play at the next level. So I wanted to see him at the Alabama Mississippi AllStar practice, work through defensive back drills and stuff like that. Maybe we will get to see that, but he is listed as a quarterback on Mississippi's roster. For the state of Alabama, they have 5 Alabama commits on their current roster. Those guys include Jaleel Hurley, Hunter Osborne, Wilkin Formby, Wyquez McElderry. So the Crimson Tide will be well represented when it comes to the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game. Several of the top targets were named to rosters as well, including Centurion Perkins, Quay Rusaw, James Smith, among other guys. But I think something else to keep in mind, although these rosters are usually stacked at the very beginning, Peter Woods, another guy on there who I did mention, but although these rosters are usually really stacked when the list is first released, most of these guys, especially these top guys who are going to most likely participate in the Under Armour All-American game and the All-American Bowl, a lot of those guys drop out of this All-Star game. We will keep you updated on that, but hopefully we get to see a lot of them play. Over the last couple of years, we have seen a lot of the top guys hang around and try to participate in this event. Last year, the Crimson Tide represented by Kobe Prince and Jaheim Otis, both guys who earned starting spots coincidentally. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity to see some top Alabama commits in action action at that particular event before they signed the national letter of intent. I do have a recruiting update on Reuben Bane, a 2023 4-star defensive lineman at Miami Central High School in Miami, Florida. Recently released his top 6 and included Louisville, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Miami, and Oklahoma. The Crimson Tide did host Bane for an official visit during the month of June. He spoke highly of the Crimson Tide's player development and just how their program go over and beyond the Call of Duty to basically provide the best for their student athletes. So he really likes what the Crimson Tide can do in terms of their player development. Of course, he has some ties to the Miami program. Dad played for Miami. His older brother is on Miami's coaching staff at the moment. He also has shown a lot of love to Auburn during his recruiting process, and all these other schools loaded in his top school list of programs to know as well at this point in his recruitment. The Crimson Tide seem to be in a solid position. I just think they'll really benefit by getting him on campus. Now let's close things out by talking about a couple of defensive linemen who are expected to take an official visit to Alabama on this weekend. Starting with Jordan Hall, a 6'5", 300-pound defensive lineman out of Florida, who currently has schools like Florida, Georgia, Florida State, Alabama, of course, involved in his recruitment at the moment. He's a long defensive lineman. Looks as if he has great size, nice jump off the line of scrimmage, can stack and shed, looks very impressive. He seems to dominate the competition that he goes up against at this point in his development. So the Crimson Tide really seem to like him. We'll get him on campus for an official visit on this weekend. And to be honest, I think in terms of Alabama's defense continuing to get better right now on the football field, of course, these guys won't be there until the future, but I think they need a couple of more guys in that interior defensive line in terms of pulling in more elite guys who they can develop into making an impact along the defensive front. And guys like Jordan Hall could be the answer to that. So I think the Crimson Tide recruiting the defensive line has been critical for so many years now. I think he's going to continue to be a huge part of their recruiting efforts, which is why it is so important that they are getting a guy like Jordan Hall on campus this weekend for an official visit, along with David Hobbs, a 2023 4-star defensive lineman out of North Carolina, a very athletic guy, great in space. Not too many linemen you can see just go over to play tight end on the offensive side of football. Almost looks as if he's lining up at wide receiver sometimes. He can take short routes and take them to the end zone, so you rarely see that. So you know, with those type of skills, he's really reliable in space. Seems to be a dominant guy on the defensive line at this point in his development as well. So he's a guy to keep your eyes on. Definitely one of the top defensive linemen in this 2023 class. I think it's going to be so important that the Crimson Tide land some great guys along the defensive front, even moving forward. They already have commitments from guys like Hunter Osborne, Edric Hill, but I'm pretty sure they are going to want to add on guys like James Smith, like Hobbs, like Hall, add on to this 2023 recruiting class when it comes to that defensive front, because I still feel they have some questions to answer when it comes to that in this 2023 recruiting class. Is adding on more depth. I think Osborne and Hill are nice additions so far, but adding on to some guys to strengthen this class, I think will be very beneficial for the Crimson Tide. But that is what I want to talk about on today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com, pick your subscription today. After that, go over to the Apple App Store. If you have an Apple device, download the Touchdown Alabama app. If you have an Android device, the app is located in the Google Play Store. So be sure to download that app so breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.